watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Well, good afternoon to you and welcome into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Wymer and thanks for joining us on this Friday afternoon live on Fox Local, fox35orlando.com, and also on YouTube. It is 4 o'clock and that means it's time for today's Top 4 at 4, where we break down 4 of the big stories that we're tracking in the Fox 35 newsroom today. And joining me for today's Top 4 at 4 is Fox 35 News anchor LuAnne Sorrell. And LuAnne, we appreciate you joining us.
Yeah, my pleasure. Happy Friday, Garrett.
Happy Friday to you. We begin here. We are awaiting an update. In fact, it looks like they are stepping up right now. An update on our top story of the day, and that is a fire that a parking garage at the Jacksonville Airport that shut the airport down. There is Mayor Donna Deegan from the city of Jacksonville about to give us an update, it appears. And if she's about to begin, let's go ahead and listen in. All right, well, it looks like we don't have any audio from that source, just some static there. So we will go ahead and keep monitoring that and hopefully be able to take that live here in just a minute. But LuAnne, I mean, we have video from the airport showing flames coming from that parking garage.
Dramatic video, yeah, Garrett. You can see that intense inferno inside a parking garage at Jackson Airport, the black smoke billowing from the top. No word yet on exactly what caused that fire or if there is any injuries as a result of that. But what we do know is that the airport is completely shut down at this hour. No planes coming or going and no cars coming and going either. So we got an update a little bit earlier that the officials there at the airport expected to reopen at 8 o'clock. So hopefully once we get this news conference going, we will get the very latest on that. But as of right now, still the airport is closed down in Jacksonville, but we do expect it to reopen at 8 p.m.
Yeah, it's, you see the smoke just billowing out of there. Here's another view showing that as well. You could see it, dark smoke, plumes of smoke. We spoke with the Vice President of External Affairs earlier today on our show, and he talked about having structural engineers come in for this, that they that was their big concern at that point, basically being concerned that there may be structural damage, because you mentioned no reports of injuries of anyone having to go to the hospital, but they are concerned about the structural damage potentially to that parking garage. And obviously a lot of cars parked in it. It was a busy day at the airport. That was something that he talked about as well. And so, people are going to be needing to get their cars, and they didn't know how many cars were involved at the time. And so still some questions that hopefully will be answered soon. And I don't think we still have audio. Yeah, still just getting static from that news conference there. So we'll hopefully have an update for you in a little bit. But let's talk about the story number 2 today, and that is more than 200 people arrested in what Sheriff Grady Judd is calling Operation Fool Around and Find Out.
Yeah, he said more than 250 suspects were arrested during this 9-day undercover operation. 36 of them were illegal immigrants. He said the focus of Operation Fool Around and Find Out was on human trafficking, child predators, and illegal immigration. So yeah, he said a lot of these people were either involved in prostitution or trying to contact a minor for sex. So good thing we got 255 suspects, he said to be exact, off the streets of Central Florida.
Story number 3 today, and that's a 13-year-old arrested and charged in a Volusia County stabbing.
Yeah, Sheriff Mike Chitwood was not happy about this. He really blames the parents, saying, you know what, as parents, we should know what our kids are doing. That 13-year-old was one of 3 middle schoolers who allegedly jumped a 15-year-old outside of a middle school there in Volusia County, Heritage Middle School. Sheriff Chitwood tells us that this all started as a fight earlier in the week at the school, and the victim actually beat up one of the other teens, and that's why these 3 teens jumped him about a half-mile away from the school. A 13-year-old, as you said, Garrett, is now in custody. The sheriff is still looking for the 2 other teens involved in the stabbing, but he says he's pretty sure he will have them in custody by the end of this week.
And let's go ahead and move on to story number 4, and that is as we get ready and get closer to the opening, the grand opening of Epic Universe. Some updates for the Harry Potter ride, the Battle of the at the Ministry. Some changes for it today after it opened back up for previews.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting because people have been complaining about this virtual line. You could get into it 3 times a day, but if you weren't able to get into it, you couldn't ride the Battle at the Ministry, and people were having a really hard time. It was glitchy. Well, they turned that off, shut that down for now. It could come back later, but right now we know the virtual line is gone, and now you just do the good old standby line. You get in line, and you can hop on the ride. So very exciting. You don't have to, try to get in at 11 and 3 and 5 or whatever the exact times were. You can just go to the park and get in line to ride this. It was closed when I went, so I was really disappointed, but I got to go in and still see the Ministry, but not ride the ride. But it was really cool looking.
So the same thing when I went
really?
As well. We were able to walk through, and I was just blown away by just that queue area, which is what you're seeing the video of. Right there. So
detailed, wasn't it?
The details, oh my goodness.
Look at the little duster moving.
I know.
It was amazing.
It's incredible just to be in there and see all that and just the size and scale of it as well. So I've got it pulled up on the app right now, 135-minute wait for it. It was up to, I think, 180 at one point when we checked this afternoon, so 3 hours. But it had been fluctuating a little bit, but that is one that people have been wanting to ride.
Absolutely.
So it had been closed for a while during previews, but back open today at least, and of course the grand opening scheduled for Thursday.
Yep.
Well, it is a big day. We're going to have a lot of coverage next week here. So. Well, LuAnne, we appreciate you joining us. That is today's Top 4 at 4, but it looks like we do have sound coming back from our news conference here in Jacksonville. Officials give an update on this fire at the airport, so let's go ahead and listen in.
I would say some, but I don't know.
Do we know that they're deboarding the plane right now?
That would be an airport answer.
So they are?
I'd have to.
No, they're not.
They're not open yet.
Well,
Any more questions for me?
You can come back.
Go ahead.
Michael Stewart, Jacksonville Aviation Authority. Any updates? The mayor mentioned the airport will be opening at 5 o'clock, but obviously flights have been impacted, so it is important that if you're coming here to pick somebody up at the airport or if you're traveling out of JAX, that you check with your airlines because they're doing the rescheduling of any flights that were canceled or major delays.
How many flights do you think were canceled today as a result?
I don't have that number, but somebody will be getting it to me and we'll have that answer for you.
Any idea about the number of passengers?
If I knew the number of flights, I could tell you. We'll work on that.
Who should people contact if their car is stuck in the garage?
We'll have to work through that. Our website will probably be able to handle that question, but between that and the rental car question that was asked a little bit earlier, we are working through that issue in terms of how we're going to handle rental car returns.
Let me ask you this. What does this mean for parking long term?
Well, midterm, it means that we have less parking spaces to provide. And we suggest that travelers coming to the airport that are catching flights either use Uber or Lyft or some of the off-airport parking options that are available.
How many less parking spots?
We're probably close a little over 2,000.
2,000 parking spots less now as a result.
Well, right now, because we have both garages closed. The hourly garage, which is the closest to the terminal, has a little over 1,200 spaces, and that's going to be closed indefinitely until we can address those issues.
So that's about over 3,000.
No, for the two of them, it's over, for the two garages, is a little over, correct, 3,000.
Over 3,000
Yeah.
parking spots for now. Okay. What kind of relief is there for people who are waiting to have a cell phone on to get out of the heat? I know it's through the buses.
We're providing all options available to us to get people where they need to get to, whether it's their car, off airport, or to a point where they can be picked up by someone who's coming to pick them up, or the TNCs, the Lyfts and the Ubers.
The cooling buses are out there as well.
Oh yes, and these are set up as cooling buses so people can go take a break. I understand it's about 94 out here.
So they'll be here until the airport opens and these buses?
Yes.
And I have a question real quick. Will this action plan and project you guys have in place in any way?
Not the existing construction, but obviously we'll have to address what the repairs will be required for the hourly garage.
I do want to commend you, sir, about that language section it was specifically that caught fire to give the viewer a better understanding.
It was, I don't know if it was second or third floor. What specifically, where was the car fire?
I believe it was on the second floor of the hourly garage.
Second floor of the hourly garage, which obviously affected
So it's
everything
from the
about.
second and traveled to the third as well?
Yes.
Okay. And is this on the east or western portion of
It
that
is the
structure?
it is the section closest to the terminal.
I've actually have a question for the fire chief.
Go ahead. That's fine.
Chief, can you tell us a little bit more about the firefighting operations? How many crews responded? What did the process look like? And also, I'm curious about how quickly do you think the fire spread? From someone told me it was almost like dominoes.
Well, that's how, obviously that's how it works, is that fire starts to build in that car, the heat radiates to the cars beside them, and then they ignite it and they ignite it, and the more that fire intensifies, the quicker it spreads. But we had 7 engines on scene, 3 crash trucks, 5 ladders, 4 rescues, 3 squads, and 3 tankers. Now those crash trucks that we're talking about are normally used on the airfield. But they were brought over because they have the ability, they have foam in their tanks, and they could spray that foam in there, which would help us suppress the fire a little bit quicker.
Those are normally used for like plane crashes.
They are,
right?
yep. They're,
Okay. Is that part of the reason why the delay as well?
well, that put the airport out of, they couldn't operate the airport while those ARF units are off the airfield.
And do you know if people will be able to pick up arriving travelers at the terminals now?
Beginning at 5 o'clock.
Beginning at 5 o'clock.
I had a question for the airport. For any of the flights that were diverted, let's say to Orlando or to Savannah, will those planes be able to now come back here to finish their original flight, or it's kind of a start over?
That's a decision that will be made by the airlines. It could be anywhere from providing transportation to their final destination or the flight being rescheduled, but that's all decided by the airlines
And then
once we open.
Would the airline likely then provide like hotel, for instance? I know some people talking here from California and they're trying to get back.
That's a
not
decision.
nice drive.
Yes, that's a decision that will be made by the airlines.
Can you just clarify for the people in this lot, what is their options right now to get out of this lot? How should they leave? How can they leave? What should they do right now?
Depending on where they're going, back to their hotel or something like that, that detail is still being worked.
And just to re-clarify, do you mind re-clarifying which floor the fire started on for us?
Second floor?
It was second floor.
Will there be another update tonight?
Not a planned conference as of right now.
Thank you all very much.
Officials in Jacksonville from the airport, from the fire department, the city mayor as well. Who you saw speaking there was Michael Stewart. He's the vice president of external affairs with the Jacksonville Airport Authority. We had him on our show. He joined us live at the top of Florida Live, our 2 o'clock live streaming show. He was talking about some of the things. The airport is expected to reopen at 5 o'clock, so about another 45 minutes from now before it will open. Or reopen, I should say, after this fire that started in the hourly parking garage and really caused quite a bit of issues. They believe that so the airport does have video, and they see that it started with one car catching fire and then spreading, as you might imagine. It spread from the second floor to the third floor of that parking garage as well. Let me pull up again some more of that video that we had into our newsroom. Here's some of it from a viewer. You can see the flames on that upper floor of the parking garage. And then this from one of our weather cameras in the area. You can just see the smoke billowing out, causing a lot of issues, stopping incoming and outgoing flights. Traffic into and out of the airport was closed as well. And you heard a number of questions about folks, but being able to leave and pick up passengers and that kind of thing. But again, the bottom line, the airport is scheduled to reopen at 5 o'clock. If you will be going to the Jacksonville Airport to to fly. They are warning folks that there will be significantly fewer parking spots right now with that garage still out of commission. We're going to take a break here on Fox 35 News Plus, but we will be right back after this. Second.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Fox 35 Storm Team meteorologist Noah Berggren joins me now. And Noah, we are gearing up for a hot and humid weekend here across Florida.
Yeah, you know, Garrett, it's feeling every bit like August, and the UV index is extremely high too. You know, we've had a lot of sunshine the last few days, and the drought's going to continue to get worse now heading into the weekend. So let's get you right over to the graphics. Lots to talk about tonight. Beautiful Friday. Got music tonight at the Hard Rock in Daytona Beach, which is where our camera's from. Great to be on or near the water. Not a lot of beachgoers right now. A little surprised by that, but there'll be more people coming on the beach here over the next 2 days, certainly. Temperature right now is 95 in Daytona Beach. That'll be a record for today, I do believe. All right, so to our north, we've got a lot of active weather. You see tornado watch boxes from Missouri over towards Indiana, in Lexington, Kentucky. Some severe storms today up in the Pittsburgh area over towards Washington, D.C. All of that is going to stay north of us until next Thursday. And when it does come through, we'll have some cooler air come in. But until then, it's just hot. 95 now in Daytona Beach, 94 in Orlando, 95 in DeLand, 94 in Leesburg, 94 Winter Haven, 94 Kissimmee, 93 in the Villages, 93 in Gainesville, 93 in Palm Coast, and 86 with a sea breeze coming into Cocoa Beach. So ice cream going to be a good thing to have this weekend. And anytime we're above 90, close to 100, we're in that, it goes to a puddle in seconds. And shouts to Laurel for the graphical input with this graphic on the Garrett, this is probably our most exclusive graphic here. Our crack graphic team, and we would put our minds together. This is why we make the big bucks, Garrett. We got the ice cream melting meter. This is a good one for the weekend.
This is what the people need to know.
All jokes aside, you know, it's going to be perfect weather for ice cream and things like that this weekend. Anything to stay cool. The peak summer activities are all going to be in high demand, certainly for the upcoming weekend, with temperatures in the high 90s to near 100. The UV index is also very high. We're talking about UV index 11 plus, so don't be like me and get sunburnt. Put sunblock on and a lot of it, and also some hats, a good idea. So next Thursday, there's a small chance of a shower. I don't think there's much. I don't think there's any severe weather. I think most of it's going to stay to our north, but until then, it's hot and it's getting harder. 96 Saturday, 97 Sunday, 98 Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Will cool down next Friday to about 88. Then it'll heat back up again next weekend. So it's not even a cold front. It's just a less hot front that'll come in Thursday night into Friday of next week. But if you love heat, you're going to love this weekend.
Yeah, as long as you can eat that ice cream fast.
Very fast. What flavor, Garrett, for you? What flavor before we go?
You know what? I love cookie dough and things like that. Cookies and cream. Any of the ones with cookies, I guess, are the ones that are my favorite. What about you?
A mint chocolate chip. I feel like that's going out of form, though. I'm a mint chocolate chip guy.
You know what? You can't go wrong with that either. That's probably in my top 5. So I'm not one to turn down any ice cream. So Fox 35 Storm Team meteorologist Noah Berggren, we appreciate you joining us.
Thank you.
We're going to take a break and we'll be right back.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Wymer, and thanks for joining us on this Friday afternoon, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. We are standing by for the start of a news conference expected around 4:30, where Orange County Sheriff John Mina is going to give an update about a deputy-involved shooting this afternoon. Still working to learn more details about that, and we hope to hear from the sheriff here shortly. When that begins, we will bring it to you live here on Fox Local. Just wanted to let you know. In the meantime, we heard oral arguments yesterday in front of the Supreme Court on a case involving birthright citizenship and Trump executive orders. So you may remember that on Trump's first day back in office in January, he signed an executive order that declared that the children of parents who enter the U.S. illegally or on a temporary visa are not entitled to citizenship automatically. That's what's referred to as birthright citizenship for someone who's born in the United States to parents who are not U.S. citizens. 22 states sued the administration over alleged violations of the 14th Amendment. We have also seen 3 different federal district court judges issue injunctions that would stop the Trump administration from enforcing that policy. And so the Trump administration is asking the Supreme Court to block those universal injunctions, those nationwide injunctions, claiming it is judicial overreach of their powers. Earlier today on Florida Live, I spoke with Eric Merriam, who's an associate professor of law at the University of Central Florida, and he broke down the arguments and what we can expect from this decision when it comes down from the Supreme Court. Professor Merriam, this is an interesting case because there were, really a couple of things kind of at play here, not just the legality of that executive order, but also the question of whether a federal judge for a single district can block policy across the entire country.
That's exactly right. In this case, as in every case, there are both procedural issues, questions, and procedure, what we're talking about in the laws, the rules of the game, and then also the substantive issues, which are what in the Supreme Court world they call the merits case. Yesterday's oral argument was all about the procedural question, so not at all addressing the issue of whether or not the executive order is or is not constitutional. It was all about whether or not, as you indicated, district court judges, that's the lowest level federal court judge, whether a district court judge in a single piece of litigation, so one person sues, in this case, there were several lawsuits from around the country. They sue challenging the Trump executive order that you explained. And in those cases, as you mentioned quite correctly, on his first day in office, President Trump signed this executive order, said it would take effect 30 days later. But before that 30 days ran, multiple federal judges, district court judges, said, we think this is going to be unconstitutional, issuing an injunction against enforcing this order nationwide. And that's the really interesting thing in this case, is whether or not a federal district judge has power that goes way beyond their individual case or even their individual district, but all the way to say, no, government, you can't enforce this anywhere in the country, even though I might be a judge here in the District of Washington, which was the first case in which this happened.
And when it comes to these oral arguments, we always look for these kind of clues from the questions that these justices will ask of the attorneys. Did anything stand out as far as where, how the court might be leaning one way or another?
A few things, yes. One of for the central question of whether or not federal district judges ought to have this authority, this has been a long simmering question that unusually the Supreme Court has not answered for a couple decades. It's a bipartisan issue. This has been something that has happened both during Democratic presidencies and Republican presidencies, where some new executive order, some new federal government policy coming out of a presidential administration is challenged and a federal judge issues a nationwide injunction. We didn't really see those at all up until maybe the 1950s into the 1960s. In the last couple administrations, they've become very common. And so a lot of us have been waiting to see, well, this is an unsettled question of law about whether a federal district judge ought to be able to do this. And during yesterday's oral argument, the Supreme Court justices seemed to be in various places. There's really kind of a spectrum of answers possible here. One is we'll just let the federal judges continue to do what they've been doing. There wasn't a whole lot of appetite for that from the justices, maybe a couple. On the other end of the spectrum, it's we're never going to let federal district court judges ever issue nationwide injunctions. They can only issue injunctions in the specific cases before them. And if you want to, we can talk about some of the practical impacts of that in a case like this. And then there's kind of a middle ground where some of the justices seem somewhat interested in potentially in a case like this that might involve thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people, to have some kind of class action where a federal district judge is assigned to handle the case, but not able to issue nationwide injunctions beyond the people who are actually participating in the case. So kind of a middle ground there. We saw support for those ideas from multiple justices. So where the court ultimately lands on the procedural question is tough to predict right now. I think that was the biggest takeaway. I'm not really sure what's going to happen. We do expect to get a decision by the end of June, maybe early July at the latest, on this question, but it could go any number of ways, honestly.
I do want to go a little bit further down that path when it comes to the impact of if these decisions apply only to the individuals or groups involved in these specific cases, which would be a departure. What sort of impact would that have? Because that really would have kind of far-reaching ripple effects.
Absolutely, and the Trump administration, through the Solicitor General of the United States, was arguing yesterday for that kind of that end of the spectrum. You can only issue opinions regarding the specific litigants in front of you. And when you think about the practical impact of that, what that means is if you want citizenship for your child and under the executive order, they're not entitled to citizenship, you file a lawsuit and the judge can say, okay, I think this executive order is unconstitutional, so I'm going to prevent the government from enforcing it, meaning government, you have to allow this person to be a citizen. That's that one person winning their one case temporarily with an injunction. That doesn't apply to all the others. And also arguing yesterday was an attorney general for the state of New Jersey, where one of the other cases that were combined here, arguing, what do we do in the interim? If it's not okay for district judges to issue nationwide injunctions, we're in a situation where maybe a district judge in New Jersey says it's unconstitutional and therefore anyone born here gets citizenship, even despite the executive order. But what do we do if somebody comes from Florida, where there isn't a district court opinion enjoining the government from enforcing the executive order in Florida? Is that person a citizen or is that person not a citizen when they move to New Jersey? It really leaves a lot of difficulty with people having different rights under the U.S. Constitution, seemingly based on where they happen to be born, where they happen to give birth to their children. And so that's the practical impact that the Attorney General from New Jersey was arguing. We can't have this different answers in 50 different places. And that's one of the reasons to argue for district court judges being able to issue opinions that would be nationwide. Another thing, if I can, just real quickly, there was no indication from the justices of any support. This doesn't necessarily mean this is the way it's going to go, but there was no indication during the argument of any support for the executive order itself on the merits, on the substance of the case, meaning most legal scholars, most judges, every judge who's actually issued an opinion on this so far has said that the executive order is unconstitutional, violates the 14th Amendment. Even the court's more conservative justices, who typically are more supportive of the Trump administration's policies, in this particular case, didn't say anything during oral argument yesterday to suggest they thought that ultimately the order was constitutional. That's not to say they won't down the road, but they didn't take the opportunity to do that in any of their questions yesterday.
Do we think a decision will address both of those aspects, these procedural ones and the question of whether that executive order is constitutional?
Great question. The court's more liberal justices seemed to be suggesting in their questions that they thought that was appropriate. In other words, it was kind of everybody knows this is unconstitutional. I'm paraphrasing wildly here. Everybody knows this is unconstitutional. And so why don't we just answer that question too at the same time? I did not hear support for that from enough justices. So I actually think, and in fact, Chief Justice Roberts importantly said, in other cases, we've been able to fast track these, get to the answers really quickly. So we don't need to answer both this procedural question and the constitutional question at the same time. We can get to the constitutional question in due course, and we can do that quickly. He actually referred to the TikTok case, which we talked about a few months ago, as an example of a case in which the Supreme Court can decide the substantive issue really quickly. So I actually do not think, based on their questions yesterday and the kind of the indications they gave us, that they will be deciding the constitutional question by the end of this term, by the end of June, beginning of July. I think they will decide the procedural question of what the power of a district court judges are, but I don't think we're going to see an answer on the fundamental question that we all want to know the answer to, which is whether or not the executive order violates the 14th Amendment.
Yeah, and it seems like a lot of times in cases like this, they don't answer those questions unless they really have to.
You're absolutely right, and we've talked about that before. The idea is the theory of constitutional avoidance. The Supreme Court, even though we think of them as, that's who decides these constitutional questions, they themselves often try to stay away from answering constitutional questions if they can. I don't see that as a possibility down the road here. I think the executive order clearly raises the constitutional question, and I think within the next 12 months, the Supreme Court's going to have to answer it. The Trump administration, through this Solicitor General, was advocating for not answering that question, letting things go as long as possible. But I think a year from now, if we talk about it, I think the Supreme Court will have answered the question on the constitutional case.
So certainly something to wait and see. Speaking of waiting and seeing, we expect this briefing at the Orange County Sheriff's Office to begin any minute now. Sheriff John Mina going to give an update on this deputy-involved shooting. Still not many details on that. We are waiting for it to begin any minute now. We are going to, looks like here comes the sheriff right now. So let's go ahead and listen in.
So at about 2:19 p.m. today, our SWAT team was serving a drug search warrant at 5614 Lejeune Drive. As our SWAT team entered the residence, they encountered a man who was reaching behind a door where a rifle was located. Our one deputy fired his service weapon, striking the man. Our deputies rendered first aid, and he was transported to the hospital, where unfortunately he later passed. We were at this house a couple of weeks ago in reference to a domestic violence call. While we were there, deputies found trafficking amounts of fentanyl and cocaine, as well as 2 guns, loaded guns, one of which was stolen. So this search warrant was related to an ongoing narcotics investigation that started at that initial call. So the Florida Department of Law Enforcement will be investigating this deputy-involved shooting. They will turn their findings over to the state attorney's office. Once that review is complete, we will do our own internal investigation. The deputy who fired a service weapon has been put on paid leave pending an initial review. There is body-worn camera footage of the incident, which I have reviewed, and we will release that within 30 days. So very preliminary information. That's all we have right now, but happy to take any questions.
Did the deputies see the rifle in question?
So that's all part of the investigation. I know that a semi-automatic rifle was recovered behind the door where the deputy saw the person reaching. I did see that video, and it's clear that the person is reaching for something, and there was a rifle found behind that door.
Have you had an encounter with this man before on those prior calls for EV?
So the man has not yet been identified. I can tell you we went to that residence a couple of weeks ago related to a domestic violence call, and I don't have all the details on that, other than to say that we found trafficking amounts of fentanyl and cocaine and 2 loaded firearms, one of which was stolen.
Just to clarify, I know you said this, but the man who was involved with what happened today, he's not necessarily related to the domestic violence call. He just happened to go to that house previously.
Yeah, so the man has not been identified yet. So until we identify him and notify next of kin, we'll be able to find out if he was the person originally at that domestic violence call when this whole investigation started.
Everybody good?
At the first domestic violence incident, though, when you found the trafficking amounts of fentanyl, was that stuff taken out and arrests made, or that was left there and then the warrant had to be?
No, so when we responded, obviously anything that we found in plain view, because we were there for domestic violence, was collected. The guns were all collected. So that started an ongoing narcotics investigation, which led us to develop probable cause that more drugs, more guns, cell phones related to those cases would be in the house, and that's why the judge signed the search warrant for that residence. I don't have that information right now.
Sheriff, we're taking this live and just got to it. I was wondering if you could just kind of give us a recap for our viewers just joining.
Yeah, so today at 2:19 p.m., our SWAT team responded to 5614 Lejeune Drive to serve a drug search warrant. They entered the residence. While inside, they encountered a man who was reaching behind a door where a rifle was eventually located. One deputy fired his service weapon, striking the man. Our deputies rendered first aid. He was later transported to the hospital and pronounced dead. Again, we were there 2 weeks ago for a domestic violence call where we found drugs, trafficking amounts of fentanyl and cocaine, a stolen firearm, as well as another gun. That led to a narcotics investigation. We were able to get a search warrant to search for more drugs and more weapons related to that ongoing narcotics investigation.
Was there anybody else in the house at the time?
There was no one else in the house at the time.
Did deputies give a verbal warning to the man before he shot?
I heard multiple verbal warnings as they entered the house and while they were inside the house. They clearly said, SWAT team, search warrant, hands up, numerous times on a loudspeaker.
Sheriff, can you tell us why SWAT teams are the ones that execute these kind of warrants?
Yeah, so the reason we use SWAT teams is because this case just illustrates how dangerous this is for our deputies. You know, going into a home where we know loaded guns have already been recovered, where we know trafficking amounts of fentanyl and cocaine have already been recovered. So that's why we used our SWAT team, highly trained individuals who are trained specifically to do this, to help safely clear these households, have people come out peacefully and surrender peacefully. And in the vast majority of the search warrants and the SWAT search warrants that I have been involved with, that I have seen, that people usually surrender peacefully. That didn't happen in this case.
Does this person have a violent background?
Like I said, the person has not been identified yet.
Sheriff, we talked about the danger of this, and often that danger comes from the speed at which this unfolds. How fast between when the SWAT team got to the door and when they opened fire?
Can you repeat your question?
Yeah, you talked about the danger of this, and that often entails the speed of these events. How much time passed between when they got to the door and first announced themselves to when they wound up opening?
So I don't have the exact time, but I will tell you that I watched the entire video, and as deputies were approaching the house and knocking on the door, gave clear commands that it was the sheriff's office, that we had a search warrant to open the door. They did forcibly open the door, and we use a loudspeaker from outside the residence that continually says search warrant, hands up. You guys will all see and hear that. And like I said, most people surrender peacefully in these cases.
Anything else you can tell us about the weapon? Was it modified in any way?
I couldn't tell. To me, it looked like your standard semi-automatic rifle.
Everybody good? Thank you, Sheriff.
Orange County Sheriff John Mina giving an update there about a deputy-involved shooting. Let me show you on a map where we're talking about. Lejeune Drive. It's off Indian Hill Road in Pine Hills. The sheriff said they were out there a couple of weeks ago for a domestic violence call and found what he called trafficking amounts of drugs, including fentanyl and cocaine. He said so they were back out there today, having gotten a drug search warrant. And a SWAT team had entered the home. They said that they saw a suspect reaching for something behind a door. The deputy ended up firing and hitting the suspect. That suspect did later die, and the sheriff said that they did find a rifle behind that door where they saw that suspect reaching. Sheriff says he has watched the body-worn camera video, that will be released within 30 days. And the deputy who fired the weapon is on paid administrative leave while FDLE investigate. We're going to take a break here on Fox 35 News Plus, but we'll be right back after this.
watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Wymer. Thanks for joining us on this Friday afternoon. The Citrus Series between the Miami Marlins and the Tampa Bay Rays begins tonight, 7:10 p.m. in Miami. We talked earlier this afternoon with Eli Sussman, the founder of Fish on First, about what we can expect in this weekend's matchup. Eli, so the Marlins, been a bit of a tough year for them so far, 16-26. They have lost their last 6 series in a row. What has been going wrong for them that hopefully they might be able to, in their perspective, might be able to fix in this series against the Rays?
It starts with their starting pitching, which through the years when they've been competitive, that has been their calling card, their strength. The rotation led by Sandy Alcantara, who not that long ago won a Cy Young Award, but he's kind of been the face of their struggles in that aspect so far this year. They don't eat innings, they don't throw strikes, and it's put a lot of pressure on their bullpen. It has had that ripple effect, where, as you pointed out, they've lost 6 consecutive series, where even when one thing goes right with their starter, it usually doesn't sustain. And maybe they are finally turning the corner in that respect. They just got Ryan Weathers back from the injured list. He was poised to have a big year based on spring training. And it's hard to believe that Alcantara will continue to struggle as much as he had to this point in the season. So that's been their biggest weakness so far. A lot of other aspects have actually been surprisingly decent. So once that turns around a little bit, they should be putting up a better fight than they have the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I keep thinking Alcantara's going to turn it around. Alcantara's going to turn around. You have to think at some point he will. What has been the problem with him so far, though?
The biggest thing has just been his command not being anywhere close to what it used to be, where when he throws pitches over the plate, they are too much over the plate and leading to a lot of more damage than we're used to seeing. And then just in general, he's had these spells where he completely loses the zone and puts on too many free base runners. He's historically, and this has been an issue for the entire staff, a lot of trouble controlling the running game. The Marlins have allowed by far the most stolen bases in baseball this year, largely because their pitchers are too slow to the plate. So he's been one of them. That seems like something that should be coachable as the year goes on, just having those guys be more cognizant of runners on base so that small things don't snowball into pretty big innings. I think he's slowly putting it together coming off Tommy John surgery. But yeah, at this moment, I think it's been somewhat of a worst case scenario with him, an ERA that is north of 8 when we're more than a quarter of the way through the season.
Now, you mentioned there have been some bright spots, though, including on the Marlins offense and some hitters who have been really tearing the cover off the ball.
Yeah, that starts with Kyle Stowers, and he was the one from the very beginning of the season, an opening day walk-off hit. He really has not slowed down all that much since then. He won National League Player of the Week earlier this month, based largely on a walk-off grand slam that he hit on their previous homestand. And he's just entering the series. He's coming off another 2 home run game. He's had 3 separate games with multiple home runs. Overall, he's on pace for 38 homers. The Marlins haven't had that many from any players since somebody named Giancarlo Stanton won National League MVP 8 years ago. That's been a revelation considering how much he struggled just last season when he came over to the Marlins originally. Yeah, other than that, Connor Norby is coming around, who was acquired in the same exact trade and got off to a slow start coming off a minor injury. But now he's a really productive third baseman for them as of late. And the catching situation has been a nice turnaround from recent years, where Augustin Ramirez, in my opinion, he's one of the front runners for National League Rookie of the Year at this point. Has mashed since his very first day in the majors, which was just a few weeks ago. And now they are finding spots for him in the lineup basically every day, either as their catcher or their designated hitter. So Augustin Ramirez is definitely one that I'm focused on, only 23 years old, and he has hit the ground running as a big leaguer.
We talked about the Marlins' struggles, losing 6 series in a row. The Rays, on the other hand, they're 20-23 and are coming into this having won their last 2 series.
Yeah, the Rays have been a fascinating group. Overall, I think a more talented team than the Marlins are, and a more experienced team. The difference between whether they're at home at George M. Steinbrenner Field playing at the Yankees spring training facility versus on the road has made a pretty big difference. They've been a good team on the road, a top 3 road winning percentage in baseball, whereas they're bottom 3 in win percentage when they play at home in Tampa so far this year. This iteration of the Citrus Series is in Miami, so maybe that is a fortunate for them, just considering that trends that they've had this year. And they've a breakout hitter of their own in Jonathan Aranda, who very similar to Kyle Stowers. It was unclear what his place in the big leagues would be entering the season, and now he is very firmly on track to be an all-star representative for them in the middle of their lineup. So these organizations kind of mirror each other in that way, having one guy who has taken a huge step forward this year, just as he's seemingly entering his prime years.
Overall, the Rays have had a lot of success against Miami going back the past few years when we're talking about these Citrus series.
Yeah, I was excited to talk about that. It's hard to fathom how lopsided it has been the last handful of years. They meet every single year, usually home and home, a series each. And overall, the Rays have won every single year, those head-to-head matchups over the last 6 years. Overall, 24-4 against the Marlins. That is an .857 winning percentage. Going back to 2019, they have swept the Citrus series in a couple of those years. That's one of those things where even if the Rays are the more talented team overall, you would never expect that kind of disparity between two groups. That history is just hard to ignore. The fact that every single year the Rays have convincingly won this head-to-head matchup between their in-state rivals.
Yeah, so we will see. It's still fun when you're playing those in-state teams. What are you going to be watching for tonight?
Well, tonight's the series opener. It's another Max Meyer starts, and he's somebody that at his best had one of the very best pitching performances in baseball this year. He had a 14 strikeout game last month in Miami. So the upside with him is always really exciting to see when he is on the mound for them. And yeah, I guess just overall to see how exactly the Marlins get going offensively at home, because they're a team that has had pretty big splits where they have just recently on their past road trip, it's been a grind for them just to get 2 or 3 runs on the board versus when they're at home. They have certain setup around Loan Depot Park that they feel really prepares themselves well for games. They have special technology for simulating opposing pitchers that they feel gives them a real advantage. So this is a situation where, despite the history of the Rays getting the better of them head-to-head in recent years, maybe under these particular circumstances, they feel that they might have an advantage in this particular case.
We'll be right back.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
We are getting closer to summer, but it's already feeling like late summer. Temperatures going to be pushing triple digits this weekend. And so as we look ahead to summertime and some ways to maybe occupy yourself or your kids, have some fun, Some of those ways you may want to do that are indoors, but you also may want to do it without breaking the bank. And so earlier today, IAAPA, the International Association of Amusement Parks and Attractions, held a news conference. They were at Andretti Indoor Karting and Games to talk about affordable adventures and indoor entertainment, some ways to have some summer fun without breaking the bank.
As we head into another exciting summer season, we're here to talk about one question which is on top for many families this summer, and that is, how can we enjoy meaningful experiences which deliver fun without breaking the bank? That's exactly what we're talking about today, about affordable adventures. At IAAPA, we believe, actually, and our members do, that fun should be delivered to everybody, that it should never be out of reach for anyone, and that it should be inclusive. Whether it's exploring a museum, racing the electric carts here in the back, visiting an aquarium, we should do something which is fitting the budget and the expectations of all our guests. We are understanding that in times as today, where we have uncertainty about economic situations, that people want to face maybe tighter budgets this summer. And maybe instead of going for longer holidays abroad, internationally, they want to stay local. But that doesn't mean the fun has to stop. In fact, there are countless ways to enjoy memories over the summer and make memories which are closer to home. So today's families are looking for more than for entertainment. They're looking for fun between generations, between children, parents, and grandparents, and they want to have experience which foster learning, which spark interest, spark connection, and offer flexibility for everyone. That's where attractions like science centers, museums, family entertainment centers, and aquariums come into play. Funny enough, actually more than half of our members in North America are attractions in this category, because they combine affordability, accessibility, and enrichment, making them a perfect fit for families of all ages and all backgrounds. And it's not just about passing time. It's about creating sharing moments, encouraging curiosity, and spending quality time with each other. And often that can happen without booking a flight, without expensive travel, without going abroad for a long time. And I would like to quote some few examples of how IAAPA members actually going into the summer season by providing new experiences and really rising to the moment this summer. We're here at Andretti Indoor Karting Games in Orlando, and they are seeing usually in summertime a 35% surge in attendance. And they are racing with electric carts, they are playing the games, laser battle, all of that. And this summer they bring in new budget-friendly packages and offering family fun in a cool environment. We all know this weekend will be hot, and that is where it's a great alternative. Andretti actually is working on 2 new locations this summer in Kansas City and in Oklahoma, and that speaks for the high demand in this business. Just a few miles away, Dieselland, you might know it, they attract actually 300,000 more guests in summertime than in other periods. And with special pricing and discounts, they also have something in store for this summer season to have, arcades, mini golf, interactive games. And if you have not been there, they have a fantastic car collection. So really a mix of experiences which you can see, which you can explore, and at the same time be interactive without overspending. Then there's the Franklin Institute in Philadelphia, another one of our members, which has an attendance increase this summer by 20%. Every year they see in summertime more and more people are coming. One of their highlights is their Body Worlds exhibit, where science is combined with storytelling. If you've seen it, it's very, very impressive. And they, in addition, have evening discounts and member perks for those people to keep it affordable throughout the summer season. And they are working on a new eco exhibit, which is talking about the Earth systems, and that will open in 2026. A little bit further east, there's a Florida aquarium in Tampa.
A lot of things going on, a lot of options there for some indoor fun this summer. Well, thanks for joining us. That's going to do it for us on Fox 35 News Plus this afternoon and for the week as well. We appreciate you joining us here on Fox Local, fox35orlando.com, and also on YouTube. We will be back on Monday morning at 11 a.m. with more Fox 35 News Plus, at 2 p.m. with Florida Live, and 4 p.m. with Fox 35 News Plus as well. For now, we're going to go ahead and send things out to Studio B, where John and LuAnne are getting ready for the start of Fox 35 News at 5, which begins in just seconds right here on Fox Local. Have a great evening. Have a great weekend.
Fox 35 News starts now with breaking news.
A deadly officer-involved shooting in Orange County. The sheriff just gave us an update a few minutes ago. Thanks for joining us on this Friday. I'm LuAnne Sorrell.
And I'm John Brown. The sheriff says the suspect could have been reaching for a rifle, and that's the picture you're seeing right there. Fox 35's Randy Hildreth is live at the Orange County Sheriff's Office where the news conference just wrapped up. So, Randy, what's the latest from there tonight?
Yeah, good evening to you both. I want to break this down into what we are seeing at the scene, what we've just learned, and what we are working to find out. I want to first start with a live picture of the scene. This is off Lejeune Drive. We have a crew there, still a law enforcement presence at the scene. As you mentioned, there was just a news conference wrapped about 15 minutes ago where Sheriff Mina walked through what they have gathered as part of this investigation. He told us that SWAT team was at this home to serve a warrant as part of a drug investigation, again, off Lejeune Drive. And he says as the SWAT team was entering the home, they encountered a man in that home. He says that his SWAT team was giving commands, and as they encountered that man, they believe he was reaching around the door where a rifle was found, and during that process he was shot. Now I want to show you now a picture that was provided by the sheriff's office of that rifle. Sheriff Mina again says one deputy fired a shot at the man that they encountered. That man was taken to the hospital where he died. Sheriff Mina gave a little context about why law enforcement was at that home today. He says deputies had gone there a couple weeks ago for a domestic violence call, and while they were there, they found a trafficking amount of fentanyl, cocaine, 2 guns, and they say one of those guns was stolen. So the SWAT team was back there today to investigate further, search the home more, and that is when they encountered that man today. Sheriff Mina says that standard protocol, the state will investigate today's deadly shooting, and that body camera video of the encounter will be released. But he did say he has already watched it. Here's a little of what he told us.
I watched the entire video, and as deputies were approaching the house and knocking on the door, gave clear commands that it was the sheriff's office.